Andy Coughlin, Director of Student Publications.
Okay, and give us a little bit about your journalistic background.
Well, actually, I started off as an artist, graphic designer, went to work for a newspaper, started doing editorial cartoons, started writing columns, and then stories, and then everything just sort of went from there. And I'm more of an arts writer, arts feature writer, and stuff like that. So published my own arts magazine as well. So worked at the Port Arthur News for 5 years before coming to Lamar, where I have been advisor to the newspaper for 25 years.
Okay, and how did you, specifically when you worked at the newspaper publication, and now that you do your own publication, how do you balance the obligations of both work and home life?
It was, I would say it was more difficult when I was at the news because my kids were young. It's a lot easier now that my kids are older, unless you count you guys. Well, because, that's something to think about when you got kids. They got dance recitals, they got soccer games, and you want to be able to do things then, and sometimes they conflict with assignments. So hopefully, you can try to plan around things, but stuff happens, as far as nowadays, now my kids are grown and stuff, it's a lot easier. I just go do the things I need to do. Sometimes it's a rush, but that's, you can always do it. Of course, it's same side that your skill set is greater. I find that I can take notes, write a story in far less time than before because I know the tricks. I can listen. I know what I want. I'm already making notes. A lot of times cover an event or something. I'm already half writing the story. If you look at my notebooks, instead of just notes, there's a lot of things. Like I was recently at the Manil for the opening of the New Drawing Institute, and if you look at my notebook, there are actually paragraphs where, as we're walking from one section to another, I'm literally writing something that will almost be word for word in the story because I know how I want it to sound. I know what I want to do. So it's just I don't know how anybody balances anything. To be honest with you, I don't feel that I do a successful job of balancing but that's because I do 20 different projects. I suppose that if I balance, it's because I balance all these different projects.
Okay. And what kind of strategies would you used to use when asking for a day off? Were they more proactive, planned, just be honest, or more of like a reactive where you use like ultimatums? Or how would you ask for a day off when you really need something?
Yeah, I just kind of ask. I'm not really sure I ever really asked for any days off. I'm not that kind of person. I tend to be, I think if you can establish yourself as somebody who is dependable and somebody who knows what's required and can be done, people are more likely to give you the time. Sounds really arrogant. I'm very good at what I do. So people know that if I can, if I want some time off, whatever needs to be done is going to be done beforehand, or it's going to be done right afterwards, or I've made arrangements or stuff like that. So I'm like, I really need this time off, I had the former boss at the UP. I always remember one time it was like it was much different when I was working here. I said, "Oh, I need to leave Wednesday at 2." And he said, "Okay." And I walked away, and I came back and said, "Do you want to know why I need to leave at 2?" And he went, "No, I figured you have a good reason, and whatever needs to be done is going to be done. So why would I worry about it?" So I don't know. I'm really kind of a bit of an arrogant shit, really. And I just walk in and go, "Hey, I'm going to take this afternoon off." I'm unless one of the kids got sick when they were little, it was always planned, and I don't also never abuse the situation. But sometimes you got, things come up. I don't know if that's any help at all.
So what are some of the differences you've experienced between working or seeing others work a 9-to-5 job versus what we do is that's more of on call, be here, be there at this time type of experience?
I've never really had a 9-to-5 job. I I've never really had one. I've never. I did do shift work once, but I hated that. So, I don't know really. I mean, I don't know. I think people think 9 to 5 jobs have their own things. I mean, I can take a morning. If I need a morning, if I know I've got to work late or something like that, I can take a morning. Whereas a 9 to 5 person is like 9 to 5. I can make the time up somewhere else because whatever I'm doing is normally flexible. It is flexible. Yeah, there's demands on time, but it's flexible. You know you need to do something here. You just take some time off it here or slice it around. But I've always been that way. Every job I've worked is like, there's certain things that have to be done. As long as those things are done, most of the time I've had bosses, or at least I've been able to train bosses when I had bosses, and I do think of it as training bosses. That this is who I am. This is what you're getting. I'm real good. Go away and leave me alone. It'll be done.
Okay.
I am Haley Bruin. I work for Beaumont Enterprise, and I am currently the features writer, and I am in charge of Cat 5.
Okay, and give us a little bit about your journalistic background.
So I was originally an English major, and when I started my graduate degree, I worked for the University Press as a staff writer first, and then I was editor. And I, after school, started working for Channel 12, where I was the social media digital content producer. I did that for about a year, and then I switched to the Beaumont Enterprise, where I'm at my current position.
Okay, and how do you balance the obligations of both work and life?
So I'm in a full-time committed relationship. My parents live in town. I have 2 cats and friendships in a social life and a full-time career, so it's difficult. So working for 12, my hours technically were 2 p.m. to 11 p.m., but, nighttime is when crashes happen, when gunshots and fires and things like that go down, so it wasn't uncommon for me to stay till 2 a.m. or later, and it's difficult too, because those are the hours when most people socialize and get together, dinner time, things like that. So there was a lot of strain, but it was making time for people on my days off, sort of planning, a lot of careful planning, when I knew that I technically wasn't on call. But then again, I knew that at any given time it was, hey, we need someone. I know you're near here. There's an alligator in a culvert, for example. You got to go Facebook that. Or, we're shorthanded and we need somebody to go cover this. So that happens a lot. Or sort of walking in. So currently it's walking into work and say, hey, there's, a 7 p.m. meeting we need you to cover, or there's this event, there's a gala or something we need you at. So it's really sort of getting the balance and knowing that you don't have the luxury of a set schedule. So like currently I don't know if I'm working Thanksgiving or not. So I'm kind of making plans tentatively with my family. But there's a chance that I will be in there 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. There's a chance. Don't know. Same for Christmas and New Year's. It's just making the best with what you can do and having the people in your life sort of understand your commitments and that you love them and they're your emotional priority, but your responsibilities are going to be work first.
Okay. What kind of strategies would you use when asking for a day off that you absolutely need? Like more proactive, like I've worked really hard this week, I've produced this amount of stuff, or do you kind of try to relate or just be honest, like I need a day off, like I need one, or what kind of strategies would you use or have you used? So
you get so many day offs. I mean, in any job you're going to have so many paid vacations, sick days, personal days. So currently for the year I'm out. I've used all of them, but it's typically for me, I just have a weak immune system, and so I have to take sick days. But if it's something like, so when I first started at 12, my dad's mother, my grandmother, passed away, I think within the first month. And I was like, I have to take, this week off. Well, it was a really complicated situation. She had a terminal disease and had about a week to live. So my dad flew us all up to Florida, and I was like, I'm sorry, this is literally the last time I'm going to get to see her. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm going. Sorry. And they were accommodating about it because, you know, it's a once-in-a-lifetime sort of situation. And a lot of times it's honesty. For me, it's I can't do that, or, you know, I need to take, you know, I'm sick, or I'm overworked, or this has come up. Actually, one thing, so if you work a holiday, typically they'll give you a double pay or another day off. I worked Labor Day, and then 2 days later, my sister-in-law went into labor with my niece. And so I joked around that I worked Labor Day to get Labor Day off, her Labor Day. It's balance, and especially because it's sort of like in the job I'm in now, we're going to get our 40 hours a week, you know, and it balances out. You know, if we're going to stay late, we'll come in later the next day. If we get in early, we can, if we know we need to leave a little bit earlier, sometimes we can ask and get in early and leave like that. It just depends. Communication is really key. Letting people know what it is, and knowing that you can get what you need to get done in that amount of time that you have, and getting your work done and in, and things like that.
Okay. What are some of the differences you've experienced between working a 9 to 5 versus a job that's somewhat on call? Have you worked a 9 to 5?
Yeah. So I would call my position now more of a 9 to 5. It's still on call, but the quality of life, I would say, is better having more of a set schedule and more of a normal routine, which I do have now, a bit of a more normal routine. But like when I was working for 12, there was no continuity. It was this week is going to be this week is going to be that. I'm going to wake up and do this and you know, hope that nothing happens. I'm going to go to work, and, you know, as the clock starts ticking down towards the time I'm supposed to get off, you sort of like hold your breath that nothing happens. But of course, you know, multiple times a week something's going to happen, and so you're just there, and everybody's there. Everyone's in the same boat too, which is kind of nice. It's also kind of like waiting tables. Like, you can get called in at any day. Like someone's sick, and you're the one that they're going to call, and you're going to be like, okay, fine. You're going to go in. And it happens like that a lot. In news too. So, you know, in the positions in the TV station, there's only so many people who can do certain jobs. So if one of those people is out, you have to take over their slack. And a lot of times you're taking over their slack and doing your job as well. So it's just, I feel like I derailed from the question a little bit. Can you repeat it one more time?
What were the differences that you've experienced between working a 9 to 5 versus an on-call job?
Yeah, so I guess I don't know that I've worked a totally traditional 9 to 5 before, because my experience has been sort of news and waiting tables. And those are sort of the careers that I know, the professions that I know. And they're both, I would say, a bit different. Though now, working for the enterprise with the technically 9 to 5 schedule, it's continuity, and it's being able to schedule things, and it's sort of knowing what you're going to do. But I will say, it's harder to get like doctor's appointments and hair appointments and stuff. Because if I'm off on a Wednesday, I'm going to make a hair appointment, and they can call me, and I'm going to say, I'm sorry, I have tinfoil in my hair. I can't go. And, you know, what are they? They're just going to call somebody else. But now it's sort of like, well, if I want to get my hair done, I have to like schedule it on my lunch break and make sure I have enough time. And, you know, if it goes over, then I have to stay later, and then that sort of pushes back whatever I had planned for dinner, or, you know, evening chores or things like that. So that's a little bit trickier, which I didn't think about, you know, doctor's appointments and stuff, but that is sort of the biggest thing. Like, I don't have my mornings, I don't really have my evenings because I get off at 6. Everything closes, you know, except for grocery stores and restaurants. So yeah, that's a little bit more of it's not super critical, but it is inconvenient, I guess.
Okay. What type of accommodations would you ask for, and what are some of the reasons you gave besides, you know, direness and sick? Like, what are some of the other things, just as that you needed personally, and how did you go about asking for those?
Oh, to be honest, there's one situation, and again, it was sort of a dire thing, but I didn't think anyone believed me. It was 2 months after my grandmother died. My Peruvian babysitter died in January, and I didn't think anyone would believe me. And she died on a Thursday, and I found out early Friday morning. My mom called me, and I just texted my boss, and I told him I was sick. I could not come in. Emotionally, I was sick. I was a mess. There was no way I could have functioned. It was also like a week. It was like 8 days before my birthday, and I was just like not. And I'd already asked for my birthday off. I was like, hey, it's my birthday, I need to go. Or there's a trip planned, I think, a family trip, so to Florida. And so I said, I've got this, and have to ask. I always ask way in advance, and I make sure I have the time, and that I'm not gonna, overstep and draw. But it's again a matter of honesty to a point, and then taking care of yourself for me. So that was saying I was sick was a lot easier than explaining what I was going through. Good time.
And did you tend to feel like you used more proactive strategies worked better, planning ahead of time, being honest, appealing to the fact that you've been a hard worker, than something as reactive, sort of as like an ultimatum or an accusatory, saying, well, this person got this day off, why can't I?
Yeah, I'm not an accusatory kind of person, and I understand that every situation is weird, so I don't do that. I typically try to be proactive, and it's worked well for me. And working hard and doing good work when I'm there kind of makes them trust that, I'm not just trying to get out of it. There's a reason I'm not there and a reason I can't be there. So, yeah.
Stephen Malik. I'm the Assistant Director of Publications for the University Press at Lamar University, and I'm also the Director of Advertising.
All right, and tell us a little bit about your journalistic background.
I started off in journalism, working at the University Press as a student, and I ended up working as a stringer for the Port Arthur News and later the Beaumont Enterprise. I did a couple of internships my junior and senior year. One was with the New Orleans Picayune. The other one was with the Houston Chronicle. And after graduation, I began working at the Houston Post that was later bought by the Houston Chronicle. And from there, I worked for what was called the Don Ray Media Group, and I worked for the Hemet Times Journal in Beaumont, California.
Okay, and how do you balance the obligations of both work and life, or in those journalistic settings?
Well, for journalists, what is difficult about our job, and I would put us kind of in the same category as nurses, doctors, firefighters, police, the military, is that frequently we deal with situations that are sometimes traumatic, whether it's car accidents, acts of violence, and it can be really difficult to deal emotionally with those. So you kind of have to compartmentalize your personal life from your social life, and that's a challenge to do sometimes.
Okay. What are some of the differences you've experienced between working a 9-to-5 versus an on-call job?
Well, oftentimes, depending upon the organization you work for, journalism can be an on-call job. For example, when I worked at the Houston Chronicle, I was a Metro beat reporter. And if you know anything about Houston, you're surrounded by the 610 loop. Everything inside the loop was the Metro beat. And we worked on a rotating schedule of weekends where we were on call. So if a big event happened during that weekend, we would have to, all hours of the night or day, go out and cover that event. Even though we were off, we were on call.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And what kind of strategies would you use when asking your boss for a day off?
Well, I'm a kind of a confrontational person. First of all, I'm aware of my work environment. Are we really busy? Is someone out sick? Is it going to interfere with day-to-day operations? So I kind of do my research first, and frankly, I would just hopefully have a good enough relationship with my boss or my supervisor. I could go in and say, hey, I need a day off.
So do you feel like you would use more proactive strategies, plan ahead, honesty, appealing to them, saying, things like, well, I worked really hard, all my stuff's already done, I really need this day off, or just be like, honestly, I need a personal day, I can't come in, or use more reactive strategies with, like accusatory, this person got off, why don't I get off, type of thing.
Well, I mean, that's a whole laundry list of things to think about. As a general rule, I believe honesty is the best policy. It depends upon the circumstances. One of the things about journalists is they make good liars. So, I think honesty is always the best policy, though. Just flat out ask for it. Or if you have a sick day, you kind of really don't need their permission.
Okay. What type of accommodations would you ask for, and what are some of the reasons that you would give?
What do you mean?
So, like, I need today off, my kid's not feeling well, I worked all week, my stuff's done, I really need to stay home and take care of them, type of thing.
Well, a couple of things come immediately to mind. Obviously, family obligations are important. Sometimes, if someone has an appointment, especially a medical appointment, you have to do what you have to do. You've got to take care of that. Also, I think when it comes to taking care of self, we can usually tell when we're overworked, we're feeling tired, we might need some time to relax or whatever. It's appropriate to know when to say when, and hopefully your boss, your organization is understanding of that.
Do you feel like the proactive strategies tend to work more in your favor?
Yes, I do. Of course, that's typically the strategy I work for or toward anyway. But yes, I think you have to be constructive in what you're trying to do, and yeah, so proactive is very much the way I think works best.